Don't get confused, even within Makita there's quite a few battery line trimmers that are available. This is the 1 kilowatt version with the loop handle, they call it. Model number is UR007G. Traditional style in that it's got the motor at the back, not in the head, because there are versions with the motor in the head. There is also a 1.5 kilowatt version of this machine. But this is the 1 kilowatt version, something that I would compare to power-wise, your two-stroke machines like the Stihl FS94RC or the Husqvarna 525 LST. I think it's in that sort of class of machine personally. Now, if you don't want to hear me babble for a bit about this machine, I'll put a time code on there where you can see me start working with it and see how it actually performs. Now, this is a 40v XGT tool, meaning it runs on Makita's 40v XGT batteries, obviously. Single battery, in and out of there easily enough, somewhat. I feel like the 18-volt batteries are the easiest to clip in and out of machines. Can you get it out with one? Look, with my puny hands, it's kind of awkward to get out with one hand. I checked the recent pricing. For about $880, you get a kit with a 5 amp hour battery charger and the skin, or for around $560, skin only. Now, the bottom line on this machine is I like it. There's a lot to like about it. It's definitely not perfect. There's some things I would change about it. The first thing I will touch on is the RPM. I find, and this may just be a personal preference thing, that once these battery machines get over 6,000 RPM, I find that I enjoy them more. I don't know, I find at that point, they seem to slice through things in a satisfying fashion. That's just been my experience. There's nothing scientific behind that. This goes up to 7,000 RPM in the third speed. It has 3 speeds. The second speed even goes up to 5,500 RPM, which is more than a lot of machines' top RPM. Feels like a really torquey machine, doesn't feel like it bogs down, which is definitely a bonus. Now, it does have 3 speeds, as I mentioned, as well as a reverse, which I've never used. I assume that's if it gets tangled in stuff. The other mode it has is automatic torque drive technology. I think it's called ADT, which is pretty easy to turn on. You just need to hold down the reverse button for a couple of seconds. It goes into that mode, and then you select whether you're using a blade or nylon string. In that mode, it's going to be like your lawnmower will pick up RPM when it gets to thicker, heavier stuff. It does that sort of thing, so it'll float up and down automatically. So it can sense how heavy something you're cutting is and, flick up and down. I'm not a fan of those modes on mowers or line trimmers personally. 1, 2, 3 speeds enough for me. It's pretty basic. I did toy with it for a little bit. It just wasn't for me. I find they're a little bit delayed in when I want it to pick up, and they tend to hover around lower RPM than I would like to be using. I find I'm constantly sort of fighting with it mentally. But it is there. Feels good in the hands. The safety is very easy. You touch the safety when you pick it up. It's just on the top there. Trigger's good. The spring's not too heavy or anything, so your finger doesn't get too fatigued. The loop handle is very solid with a little bit of flex in it. Does that even make sense? I do like the feel of it in the hands. Feels good to me. That's going to be a personal preference thing. I would definitely say 5 amp hour battery on the back of it. For me, 8 amp hour is too heavy. I'll go into that later in the video. So all that business end of it is pretty nice. We get down to the party end of the machine, and we are greeted with this guard that is so big that I may take off once the line starts spinning at 7,000 RPM. Now, surprisingly, it doesn't really get in your sight lines a lot because the cutaways are there. So particularly just when you're cutting horizontally, no issues. Even vertically, it's not too bad because of those cutaways. So yes, very wide guard is probably a better description for it. I would like that to be much smaller, but it is what it is. So vision isn't so much the issue, more when you're trying to get around objects and get into awkward sections. Then we get down to the head, which has a speed feed like design. Just thread it through, wind it up. Doesn't seem to take a lot of 2.7mm line, which is what I generally work with. It just gets to a point very quickly where you just can't turn it. So I don't know if it's full of 2.7, it just doesn't take a lot, or I don't know. I would be changing the head personally. I'd be putting a speed feed on it for that reason. That it doesn't seem to take a lot, but also this little knob here. I'm never a fan of those I find it's just harder to get a nice float pass, and then sometimes you've got to really tilt the machine to get to what you're trimming, and then, you know, because of that, you start to feel it in your hands and wrist when you start doing this sort of stuff. Anyway, I go into that further in the video, very easily fixed. Does have a on-off button. I don't like on-off buttons. This one's pretty acceptable because it works pretty quickly. It doesn't need a super long press or anything. Plus, it remembers the last mode that you were in. I don't know for how long, but I've noticed that it's turned off. I've gone to turn it back on and it's in the speed that I previously had it in. Just little things. Little things are nice. So yeah, 3-speed. You can definitely hear it ramp up all the way to when it gets to the 7,000 RPM, which is just music to the ears. Oh, sounds like a cat's got the fright of its life or something. I like it. Anyway, I gave it a good go around here. I'll show you some vision of that now. If you've got any questions about the machine, let me know in the comments. Hopefully I can answer them. All right, I know you just want to see this thing work, so I'm just going to show you some raw footage of it trimming through. This is just the back of our veggie patch here. Hopefully we won't scare the chickens. They're in the little orchard there, munching away at the weeds. We've got 2.7mm line, which is what I normally use anyway. Good for when it's a little bit thicker. I'll probably be running it in the 3rd speed just because I like the power. Let's see how it goes. Not normally something I do because I just like running them at full power, but I'm going to try this on the 2nd speed, not the 3rd speed, because it just absolutely obliterated that stuff in the top speed and I wasn't on the throttle full all the time. Let's see what it does. Alright, so 2nd speed is going to be more than enough for most normal applications and maintenance stuff, and I'd probably, just going off that, I want to do some tests on some thicker like residential edges, but I feel like, yeah, for most maintenance stuff on the 2nd level, easy, you'd almost be silly to use a 3rd speed, which is weird coming from me because I normally just like to run them at full power, but it almost felt like a little bit of overkill. I do have some stuff out the front that I'll test the 3rd level on. It's a little bit thicker. Some really spongy buffalo on a slope. We'll give that a go soon. But let's keep cleaning this up. I think I need to get the weed puller for that. I don't want to just obliterate that and it grow back. They are the worst, those things. Now, I'll generally test these things with the guard on just because that's how the manufacturer intends them to be used. Obviously, this is quite a large guard. I'm sure a lot of people would take it off. Now, while I'm not saying you should do that, the reason a lot of people do it is it lets you run the line a little bit longer and get sort of better access. Like instances like here, you'll be able to get around here more easily. Again, I don't recommend it. It's most likely going to void your warranty. Running longer line is going to deplete the battery quicker. I actually should do a video where I test the difference between running 20mm longer with the guard off compared to the runtime with it on. I might do that. Look at the kookaburra. No, it doesn't even want to laugh at me today. Little valve box here. These are always very satisfying. I'm just going to slip it back into the third speed for a little bit, just to now compare after using the second speed for a bit. But the second speed feels comparable to a lot of other battery trimmers that I've used, or kind of what I'd expect from a battery trimmer. I'll have to look at the RPM figures for it to compare. But yeah, the third speed just seems to rip, and the specs might not indicate that. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I'm just basing this on feel alone, and feel for everyone is obviously very different. But that third speed feels like it really rips. I mean, you can feel it. You can hear it, that sound change. It almost sounds violent. Instances like this where you kind of want to manipulate the head on a downslope or something, that's where you start to really notice that guard. The other thing I noticed there, which I alluded to at the start, the head on this, it's got that annoying protruding knob there, which means you float past, I don't know, you can't float over as well, as in when you're going horizontally across the grass. That's what I like about the speed feed heads. They've just got that nice flat bottom on it. It's a bit more consistent. A little bit more wild here. Let's see how it'll get through this somewhat overgrown couch. Now that line wasn't fully loaded up when I started, which is intentional. I wanted it to run out so we could show you the reload on this. Now it does have a speed feed like design on it, where you thread the line through and then you just spin that knob on there. It's not amazing. Again, head's something that's very easy to change and relatively inexpensive to get what you want. So most of the stock heads I've seen generally don't light the world on fire. So it does have an arrow on the eyelet showing which way to thread it in. Now I didn't go long at all with these just because I'm running 2.7 and it can't wind up a whole bunch of that. I'm not sure how much 2.7 it'll hold, but I didn't want to have to cut some off, so I've just gone short. So yeah, as always, feed it through, get it even at both ends. And then, now I usually notice with these stock heads that they're a little bit harder to wind up. So then it tells us to ratchet this around this way. So you get to a point where I didn't put a lot of line in there. Maybe it just doesn't hold a lot of 2.7, but it gets very hard to wind this thing already. Like, is it full? There's not a lot in there. I'll have to look up the specs for how much line it holds, but the other thing is maybe I'm doing something wrong. But that doesn't seem to want it to turn anymore, which indicates to me that it's full. Lucky I've got my handy scissors. Again, here's another issue with the guard. Just trying to go through here is a lot more awkward. A nice slimline guard would be appreciated. So power, definitely not an issue there. Ripped through that overgrown couch, which some machines can get caught up in. A little bit awkward at times because of the guard and the bump feed at the bottom, but got it done. Now I do have the 5 amp hour on it, and it's still definitely not a light machine to me. Like, I'm maneuvering it a lot and I can feel a little bit of fatigue in my hand. Potentially that's just me, but... So for like feel on weight and balance, again, I haven't even looked at the specs, what it weighs with the battery on, but just the feel of it, it feels slightly heavier than my 2-stroke machines, and it kind of feels like you can feel that weight in that backhand, but I am liking it. I'm not liking it. I'm enjoying using it. I don't want to sound negative on it because I like the feel of this thing. I am just noticing a bit of fatigue in my right hand. Maybe that was just how I'm maneuvering it there, but definitely for me, too heavy with a 8 amp hour battery on the back. Now it's showing 2 bars gone, and that's going to be your issue obviously. On a 5 amp hour, you're going to rip through it quicker, but if you're cruising on that second speed for maintenance stuff, I think you're going to get decent runtime out of it. Nice little bank to test it on here. I did knock this down about a month ago. It has started to grow back. A lot of the dead stuff's in there. This machine does claim to be quite torquey, so this should test it out. I know it's not going to show on camera, but yeah, this is quite thick. Very, very thick. It gets even thicker when you get down here if you... Whoa! Like, look at that. So it is actually working pretty hard, but it's not bogging down. Plus you've got all the dead clippings from before. We're down to 1 bar now, and I can kind of, I don't know if it's just me, does it feels like the voltage has dropped a bit, which is, you know, pretty standard for battery stuff. Still sounds like it rips, but I'm going to grab a new battery in a second once this one runs out. There you go. Okay. Well, looks like my ears and my feel were completely right. We are empty. I will go and grab another. Now for me, I like using this battery gear. I like the user experience so much better, and the reason for that is the less vibrations, less noise, no emissions from the machine, and I don't mean for the environment, I mean I'm not breathing it in. It's a lot less obnoxious for the neighbours as well. So I do like that. Obviously, the other side of that is once you are doing heavier stuff like this, it just eats into the battery of any machine very quickly. I am admittedly using the smaller battery as well. It's got to be that balance between runtime and weight. For me, the strain on my arm of carrying that 8 amp hour for long periods of time would just not ideal. Anyway, point I'm trying to make is for stuff like this, it's really not your machine. Like, it'll get through it, but you're going to need a few batteries. It's got the power to do it, but you know, if I'm doing a lot of this sort of work, I'm grabbing my 2-stroke machine. It's just going to run for a lot longer. I'm not thinking about charging up multiple batteries. Is it just about out of batteries? Anyway, that's just my thoughts, but Yeah, again, that's not being critical of this machine. I think this machine is designed as like a maintenance machine that will get through some thick and heavy stuff because it's got enough power. Anyway, I'll grab another battery and see if we can hear the difference in sound. Ugh. I love that I can be out the front and leave a $500 or $600 line trimmer, $1,000 phone, and go a couple of 100 meters away and not worry about it going missing. I just know the camera's not going to be doing this justice. Obviously that's all the new growth there, but underneath there is like a lot of thickness and dead stuff, runners. Yeah, it's much thicker than it looks. Now this does upset my OCD a bit here. There's no hard edge, it just turns from the grass to some rock to the road. I like a nice straight edge, at least at the front. So I don't know, if you got any ideas for how to maintain this, let me know. I'm going to see if I can tidy it up vertically now. There's going to be rocks flying everywhere obviously, so I'll have to be super mindful of cars, but it's a very quiet road. Obviously I'm going to blow that down, but I don't know. What am I going to do here? Right, yeah, hopefully I covered enough things to help you in your decision to buy or not to buy this machine. I am enjoying using it. I see it usable for any domestic home user. Like even if you've got a small yard, you're going to feel premium using this thing. It's going to be a joy to use. You're going to get some nice crisp edges vertically with it. Or if you have a larger block, I still think you're going to be happy. Maybe have a couple of batteries for it. Commercially, I think it is viable as a maintenance machine, definitely. And then if there's anything a little bit heavier that you're doing on the day and you've got a couple of batteries, I think it will get through that. Bottom line for me is I genuinely like it. I really like this machine. Not perfect, couple of things I'd change, but I would rate it in the higher tiers of battery line trimmers I've tried as far as the maintenance ones go. Have you got this machine? Have you tried it? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about it. Thank you for watching this Turf and Tools video. Plenty more to come on the channel. We have so many bits of equipment to try out here. We've got the podcast as well. Make sure you check that out. We've got a video version on YouTube, or the audio version is wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. See you next time.